Most history books tell you how Apache warriors fought. Hollywood shows painted faces, horses racing across the desert, and battles against the U.S. Army. But almost no one talks about the women. The women who kept entire communities alive. The women whose understanding of cleanliness, health, and survival amazed many of the outsiders who encountered them. Long before modern medicine reached much of the American frontier, Apache women had developed practical routines for keeping themselves, their children, and their camps healthy in one of the harshest environments in North America. Some of these practices have even been supported by modern science. Others completely challenge the stereotypes that Hollywood created decades ago. So today we're exploring 10 fascinating hygiene practices of Apache women that reveal a side of history most people have never heard. And by the end of this video, you may look at the word primitive very differently. Number 10. Nature was their pharmacy. Imagine waking up in the middle of the Arizona desert over 200 years ago. No pharmacies, no supermarkets, no running water, no bottles of shampoo or soap. Everything you needed had to come directly from nature. Apache women became experts at recognizing which plants could clean the body, soothe irritated skin, or help prevent infection. This wasn't random guessing. Knowledge was passed from mothers to daughters for generations. Girls learned which plants grew after seasonal rains, which roots produced cleansing foam, which leaves reduced skin irritation, and which herbs should never be touched. Their education started in childhood and continued throughout their lives. Instead of depending on manufactured products, they depended on observation and experience. Every season became another lesson. Every plant had a purpose. Number 9. Hair was cleaned without modern shampoo. One of the most remarkable examples involves the yucca plant. Today, many people recognize yucca as a decorative desert plant. Apache women knew it as one of nature's best cleansers. The root contains natural compounds called saponins. When mixed with water, these compounds create a rich foam that behaves much like soap. Women would carefully crush the root, mix it with water, and massage the lather through their hair. The result wasn't just cleaner hair. It also removed dust, sweat, and excess oils that quickly accumulated in the hot desert climate. Many historians have noted that yucca shampoo left hair soft and surprisingly manageable without artificial chemicals. Even today, some natural skincare companies still use yucca extracts because of these same cleansing properties. What Apache women discovered centuries ago is now being rediscovered by modern cosmetic science. Number 8. Clean camps helped protect the entire community. When people imagine life on the frontier, they often picture dirty camps scattered with trash. Historical accounts suggest many Apache camps looked very different. Women worked constantly to keep living areas organized. Food waste wasn't allowed to collect near sleeping areas because it attracted insects and wild animals. Sleeping blankets were aired out regularly. Household items were kept in designated places. Cooking areas were maintained separately from other daily activities whenever possible. These habits weren't simply about appearance. They reduced unpleasant odors, helped discourage pests, and created a healthier environment for children and older family members. In a place where medical help could be days away, or non-existent, preventing illness was far easier than treating it. For Apache women, cleanliness wasn't a luxury. It was part of survival itself. But these first 3 habits are only the beginning. The next practices reveal something even more surprising. Because Apache women had developed methods for protecting their skin, caring for wounds, and maintaining personal health that many outsiders completely misunderstood. And one of those traditions is still practiced by some Apache families today. Number 7. They protected their skin from the harsh desert. Imagine spending every day under the blazing Arizona sun. Temperatures could easily climb above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The dry wind constantly pulled moisture from the skin. Without protection, painful sunburn, cracked skin, and dehydration could happen quickly. Apache women developed practical ways to protect themselves. They often used natural mixtures made from animal fat combined with finely ground clay or mineral pigments. To outsiders, these mixtures sometimes looked like decorative body paint. But many historians believe they served a much more practical purpose. The thin layer helped shield the skin from the intense desert sun, reduced moisture loss, and even discouraged biting insects. Modern science has shown that certain mineral-rich clays can create a physical barrier against environmental damage. While these natural mixtures weren't sunscreen in the modern sense, They demonstrated an impressive understanding of adapting to the environment. For Apache women, healthy skin wasn't about beauty. It was about staying strong enough to travel, gather food, care for children, and survive another day. Number 6, they knew that clean wounds saved lives. Today, if you cut your hand, you probably wash it, apply antiseptic, and cover it with a bandage. Apache women didn't have pharmacies, but they understood something incredibly important. A dirty wound could become deadly. Women often prepared herbal washes using local plants that had been trusted for generations. One well-known example is the creosote bush. Modern research has found that this desert plant contains compounds with antimicrobial properties. Other plants were crushed into poultices to help soothe swelling and protect injured skin. These treatments weren't magic. They were the result of centuries of careful observation. Families remembered which plants seemed to help wounds heal, and which ones made things worse. Knowledge was shared from one generation to the next. In many Apache communities, women became respected healers because of their experience with medicinal plants. Long before antibiotics existed, careful wound care could mean the difference between recovery and serious infection. Number 5, water was treated like liquid gold. Perhaps nothing shaped daily hygiene more than one simple fact. Water was incredibly precious. Unlike people living beside large rivers, Apache communities often lived in dry regions where every spring mattered. Because water was limited, women learned to use it wisely. Bathing wasn't about wasting water. It was about using exactly what was needed. Families carefully protected water sources from contamination. Containers were cleaned and maintained because spoiled water could spread disease. Women also became experts at finding seasonal springs and recognizing which water sources were safest to drink. This knowledge wasn't written in books. It was carried in memory, passed from mothers to daughters, generation after generation. Early explorers frequently underestimated how much environmental knowledge indigenous women possessed. But surviving year after year in the desert required remarkable skill. Every bucket of clean water represented health. Every protected spring represented life. Without that knowledge, entire families could be at risk. We've reached the halfway point, but the next 4 practices are even more fascinating. They reveal how Apache women approached childbirth, personal health, and one coming-of-age ceremony that many historians consider among the most meaningful traditions in Native American culture. And one of those traditions continues to this very day. Number 4, the water carrier. Water was life in Apache country. In the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico, people didn't simply turn a handle and expect clean water to appear. Every single drop had to be found, carried, and protected. That responsibility belonged largely to the women. One of their greatest achievements was something called the toos, a remarkable water basket. It was woven by hand from willow or sumac shoots, then sealed with heated piñon pine pitch until it became completely waterproof. Imagine that for a moment. A basket that could carry water for miles across the desert without leaking. Every woman learned how to make one. She gathered the materials herself. She repaired cracks when the desert heat dried the pitch. She knew exactly how much water her family would need before the next spring. Without these baskets, entire bands simply couldn't survive. Hollywood loved showing Apache warriors riding across endless deserts, but they rarely showed the women carrying the water that made those journeys possible. Without them, there would have been no camp, no meals, no children, no warriors, only an empty desert. Number 3, childbirth was treated with extraordinary care. Perhaps the greatest surprise in the historical record is how Apache women approached childbirth. Instead of giving birth inside the family's main shelter, a separate birth structure was prepared. Experienced women attended the mother. Herbal medicines were gathered beforehand. The environment was kept as clean as possible. And unlike many hospitals of the 19th century, the mother usually gave birth in an upright or kneeling position. Modern obstetrics has actually rediscovered many of these positions because gravity often helps labor progress more naturally. Meanwhile, many frontier doctors were delivering babies without washing their hands. Medical science had not yet fully accepted germ theory. Thousands of women across America died from infections that today are almost entirely preventable. Apache women didn't know the word bacteria, but generations of observation had taught them something equally valuable: Clean surroundings, experienced attendance. Rest afterward. Those traditions protected countless mothers long before modern medicine understood why they worked. Number 2. Menstruation was managed with dignity. Hollywood almost never talks about this. Yet every society has had to solve the same biological reality. Among many Apache communities, menstruation followed clear customs based on cleanliness, privacy, and respect. Women often stayed in a separate shelter during this time, not as punishment, not because they were considered less important, but because the period carried spiritual meaning and also allowed time for rest. Soft materials made from cattail down, inner bark, and carefully prepared plant fibers were used for hygiene. There were expectations about cleanliness, guidelines for daily activities, and support from older women who had already experienced the same stage of life. It was organized, practical, and deeply rooted in tradition. Hollywood ignored these everyday realities because they weren't dramatic. But understanding how people lived tells us far more about a civilization than watching how they fought. Number 1. The sunrise ceremony. Nothing represented Apache womanhood more beautifully than the sunrise ceremony, when a young girl experienced her first menstrual cycle. Life paused. For 4 days and 4 nights, the entire community came together. She was carefully bathed. Her hair was washed with yucca root until it shined. Fine cattail pollen covered her face and body. A respected older woman became her guide throughout the ceremony. At sunrise, she ran toward the east. She danced for hours. She prayed. She endured physical and spiritual challenges designed to prepare her for adulthood. It wasn't simply a celebration, it was a transformation. The entire community invested time, food, labor, and ceremony into welcoming one young woman into adulthood. Think about that, an entire society stopping everything to honor a teenage girl. Even today, many Apache families continue this ceremony. It survived forced removal. It survived government boarding schools. It survived attempts to erase Apache culture completely. And it survives because some traditions are stronger than history itself. Conclusion. So, which truth would have forced a cavalry officer to admit the people he called savages were often cleaner than his own soldiers? Ironically, it wasn't the sunrise ceremony. Most army officers never witnessed that sacred event. The answer is much simpler. It was daily bathing. Army officer John Gregory Bourke repeatedly described Apache women washing themselves every morning in streams before sunrise. Meanwhile, many soldiers spent weeks wearing the same uniforms without bathing. The stereotype had been completely reversed. The people labeled uncivilized often practiced stricter daily hygiene than the army sent to remove them. History didn't ignore these facts because they were unbelievable. It ignored them because they challenged a story people wanted to tell. It's easier to remember war paint than yucca shampoo. It's easier to remember cavalry charges than mothers preparing herbal medicines. It's easier to show conflict than quiet dignity. But history deserves better than easy stories. The real Apache women weren't background characters in someone else's adventure. They were healers, teachers, engineers, mothers, caretakers, and guardians of knowledge refined over countless generations. Perhaps that's the greatest truth Hollywood never showed. If this story surprised you, let me know in the comments. Which of these 10 truths changed the way you see Apache history the most? And if you'd like to discover more forgotten stories that history books and Hollywood often leave behind, be sure to subscribe. Because sometimes, the most fascinating parts of history are the ones that were almost forgotten.